Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather, 5th day of December now, 2021. I'm David Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Let's see, first up, we've got, first graphic shows pretty strong winds across the western part of the state. Highest wind gusts I've seen in quite a long time here. For example, 96 miles an hour start up there at Cape Lisburne on the far western Arctic coast there. Peak wind gusts, Point Hope 64 miles an hour, and near 70 miles an hour for Kotzebue, 98 miles an hour there at Wales, I believe, or either Wales or Tin City, either one, and then Teller 75 miles an hour, Nome just under 60 miles an hour, Golovin about 61 miles an hour, and then the other 98 mile an hour wind gust here, that's at Shaktoolik River there, east of Norton Bay, kind of higher elevation there, northern Lotto Hill areas, and St. Michael about 70 miles an hour, as well as Savunga. So heading down to the south a little bit, strong winds, really strong wind gusts across a wide area of the state, the entire west coast from the Alaska Peninsula. That 68 mile an hour peak gust at Cold Bay, but Cape Newnham 87 miles an hour, and those the 70 to 75 mile per hour wind gusts there across the Kuskokwim Delta. Let's see, 72 miles an hour at Donlin, 70 miles an hour at Bethel, and Tuksuk Bay, 71 miles an hour. Otherwise, pretty windy, not quite as strong. King Salmon seeing about 50 miles an hour. Togiak Bay, the same thing there. And let's see, then it really drops off as you head east. So pretty strong winds. That's going to be improving. Actually, it currently is improving there as the front pushes inland. The whole system will start to slowly weaken, so these type of wind gusts probably won't be repeated, but see a big increase in the winds into the western interior and central interior, all the way actually even to the east side and across southern Alaska later tonight and tomorrow. And moving on to the next graphic showing the red area there, that's all winter storm warnings or blizzard warnings out for everywhere in the red here. St. Lawrence Island and Seward Peninsula, all the western interior down to Bristol Bay for heavy snow and gusty winds, creating whiteout conditions. Or visibility is down to less than a quarter mile at times. And in these areas here, look for 8 to 16 inches of snow, and these are out through Monday, although they'll begin to end from west to east. Probably later tonight here, St. Lawrence Island and the western Seward Peninsula, the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Bristol Bay area. But for the Susitna Valley, winter storm warning for heavy snow, 8 to 16 inches in general, but heavier amounts north and west of Talkeetna, and it could be measured. The forecast has it in feet for the accumulation there, so looking for some heavy snow in the Susitna Valley. Otherwise, winter weather advisories out for the western or Tanana area, eastern interior. That's still a wind chill advisory out until 6 p.m. for wind chills 50 below zero for the 40-mile country upper Tanana Valley. And actually now a high wind warning out for the Alaska Range, eastern Alaska Range, and that's out through, let's see, through tomorrow and tomorrow night, actually through Monday night and early Tuesday for winds gusting to 70 miles an hour, and that kicks into effect later tonight. And snow advisory, 3 to 6 inches of snow for the western Kenai Peninsula. Winter storm warning there for the east side, Prince William Sound, Valdez area, eastern or North Gulf Coast in there. And that's 12 to 24 inches of snow in the forecast there for later tonight through tomorrow night. And winter storm watch here, eastern North Gulf Coast, late tonight through Tuesday morning into the northern panhandle. Look for 6 to 10 inches of snow are possible in these areas during that time frame. And from there, taking another look, wind chill advisory still out here for the eastern North Slope and the southeastern Brooks Range. winter storm warning or blizzard warning as the winds in the front pushes in. That'll create near whiteout conditions, winter weather advisory, western Arctic coast. That about covers all the watches, warnings, and advisories. And you can see the most intense storm of the winter season here, center of which tracking northeast there across the Russian Far East coastline in toward the Chukchi Sea, slowly with the front kind of moving in bands of clouds into the interior. The main precipitation producing clouds back here in the west and up to the north there. This mostly mid and high level stuff swinging in. And another system there southwest of the Queen Charlotte's spinning some clouds up into the southern panhandle, again mid and high level clouds. And a lot of cold air coming back down out of the Russian Far East here out of into the western and northwest Bering Sea. And there we go. You see it's already crossed Shimia back in the colder temperatures, rain and snow showers. And right on the edge for the Pribilof Islands area. And putting this into motion again, you can see kind of the back edge of the front. Another band develops there, back edge kind of improves there over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, especially the Yukon Delta. May have been some clearing there. And yet another band, though, coming onto the coastline and kind of broke up there over Bristol Bay, at least the mid and high level clouds. Low clouds, though, overcast skies all through this area, spreading eastward. On the chart today, 950 millibar low. Actually may have bottomed out in the 940s possibly, but that's tracking northeast, starting to fill now, but the snow-blowing, snow-strong winds, again, across all the western part of the state along the coast, from the Alaska Peninsula, as we saw, all the way up to Cape Lisburne there, and increasing the winds here, tightening gradient already going on into the central interior and the west side, even on the east side, starting to pick up the winds now, say at Delta Junction, and temperatures coming up. And for tonight, this system here, the one, let me back it up one, right there south of the central Aleutians, tracks east-northeastward at a pretty good clip, makes a good jog to the Alaska Peninsula. And that's going to keep the gradient tight here, especially in advance of the occluded front that kind of stalls out here a little bit as this low tracks to the northeast into the Chukchi Sea. With widespread area of snow and blowing snow working eastward, especially on the winds, probably more of an increase in the winds than the snow, but the upslope areas see the heaviest snow. Again, the heavy snow is to sit in the valley. And warmer temperatures, already raining in Seward currently mid-afternoon on Sunday here. And same thing, I believe, at home where temperatures in the upper 30s, trying to reach 40. And that warm air is going to continue to surge northward, especially when this low tracks up into northeast Bristol Bay tomorrow. Looking at pretty strong winds. Probably Chinook wind will keep precipitation out of the northern Cook Inlet area, say from Kenai, Soldotna, or Anchor Point northward. Across Eagle River to Palmer. Don't look for much in the way of precipitation. All get hung up in the Chugach Mountains. North Gulf Coast, heavy precipitation. Again, with the winter storm warning out, windstorm watch for the Panhandle northern areas. And the east side here, again, high wind warning. The Alaska Range, snow, blowing snow all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast. But much improved conditions back here to the west. You can see a lot slacker gradient, lighter winds, drier conditions, just snow showers drying out over Bristol Bay. Maybe some clearing all the way up to the Seward Peninsula. And then this low takes a turn to the east, doesn't really track northward, but decides to move to the Gulf of Alaska there. That'll bring colder, drier air back into Kodiak Island, a break here over the southwest part of the state, but a lot of snow, areas of, but winds much lighter, a lot less gradient here on Tuesday across the interior and the Panhandle. Look for rain or snow, west-southwest flow, so any elevation at all will be in the form of snow, but the sea level area, especially along the coast, probably will see rain. And finally, a chance of snow with this low center tracking in toward Prince William Sound. Fair chance of snow, northern Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, and Copper River Basin areas. Stays breezy and showery, not too bad out over the Bering Sea with possible gale force winds northern Bering Sea, but a lot lighter down along the Aleutians with possible clearing periods as well. And for lows tonight, upper teens, northern Panhandle, upper 20s to the south, near 20 for the North Gulf Coast. In the probably in the upper 20s, warming into the lower 30s here at Kenai Peninsula and North Gulf Coast, mid-30s Kodiak Island, warming up into the, around near 20 for the Sitna Valley, warming trend in the Copper River Basin, upper 20s for Bristol Bay. Highs tomorrow, anywhere from 30 to 40 degrees, south central Alaska along the North Gulf Coast to Kodiak Island, and mid-20s for the northern Panhandle, 25 to 30, say for the Juneau area to upper 30s down south. Mid-20s Copper River Basin. Notice all these temperatures well above zero now, except for the Kuskokwim Valley, still down in the single numbers, McGrath, Nikolai on Tuesday morning. In the upper teens for the Copper River Basin, in the 20s for southern Alaska, near 30 Kodiak Island, and 20 to 35 for the Panhandle. Highs Tuesday afternoon, colder air again coming back in, so not cracking, freezing around Kodiak Island with another round of gusty northwest winds. 20s, south central Alaska, 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle. Up north, much warmer. That below zero area is really shrunk down now. Still 32 below Northway and Tok. That'll be early this evening, but above zero all the way to the Arctic coast in the mid-teens. And near 20 out towards St. Lawrence Island. High tomorrow, single numbers, Copper River, for the eastern interior, Yukon Flats, Arctic Village. Otherwise, 20. Some areas getting above freezing. Ambler may get to 33, as well as McGrath and Nikolai. And then lows, still warmer, barely below zero anywhere. Otherwise, single numbers in teens. And then the highs the following day, 5 to 15. Out to the southwest, lows tonight, 20s to lower 30s, followed by highs.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Traffic, we got VFR, North Slope Arctic Coast, IFR along and south of the Brooks Range there, across the northern valleys, and IFR, lower Yukon River Valley, Yukon Kuskokwim Delta, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, breaking out to VFR, Atka Island westward to Shimei and Attu, and some IFR now arriving over the Pribilofs. Early in the morning, IFR, though St. Lawrence Island, western Seward Peninsula, Yakutat, marginal VFR, northern Panhandle, and looks like the southern 2/3 or 3/4 stay VFR, as well as eastern interior. And for the afternoon, VFR, southern portion of the southeast coast, or marginal VFR for Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, Elfin Cove, IFR, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound into southern Cook Inlet, almost up to Kenai Soldotna, but does extend north on western Cook Inlet into the western Susitna Valley, and even farther north from Bristol Bay all the way up to the southern slopes of the Brooks Range into the Koyukuk Valley there. And VFR, eastern interior, north of the Alaska Range. North Slope Arctic Coast stays VFR, IFR, Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, Kivalina, on down across, looks like Shishmaref and Teller, those areas into St. Lawrence Island. Notice the Bering Sea, VFR, Pribilofs, all the Aleutians into the Yukon Delta coastal area, Norton Sound, up into Kotzebue. And for the Tuesday morning time frame, we're looking at the VFR zone there, St. Matthew Island, Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, right up into Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, Kamishak, Kachemak Bays, and IFR, now northern Cook Inlet, Turnagain Arm, Kinnick Arm, Manuska, Susitna Valley up to the Alaska Range, maybe Denali Park area, and IFR, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, and much of the Panhandle now in the eastern Gulf of Alaska. Areas of VFR over the northeast interior. And for the afternoon Tuesday, looks like pretty solid IFR just south of the eastern Arctic coast there, all the way down into the Manuska Valley and maybe the eastern Susitna Valley. It looks like the cutoff will be the Talkeetnas there, Turnagain, Kinnick Arm, and Anchorage area, Palmer, into possibly down as far south as Resurrection Bay, definitely Prince William Sound, eastward to Cape St. Elias. Marginal for Yakutat, and kind of a mix there, marginal VFR, some IFR for the Panhandle, northern Bering Sea, IFR down to about St. Paul, otherwise marginal VFR for the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, and Yukon Kuskokwim Delta. Passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR. Adigan, same forecast, marginal VFR. Better condition zone out the north side of both of those approaches. And Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR. Occasional IFR for rainy. Marginal VFR for windy, but VFR out the north entrance into the Tanana Valley. And Isabel, marginal VFR. Mintasta, VFR, possible marginal VFR possible on the southern entrance. And for Tanita, IFR possible in the eastern entrance, otherwise marginal VFR. Portage, IFR, maybe even a low IFR in the eastern entrance at times. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet, just almost up to, well, about reaching Sand Point, otherwise south of the entire state. At the surface there, now north of the Pribilofs, up along Shelikof Strait, North Gulf Coast, and just off the eastern North Gulf Coast, down in toward Dixon Entrance. Icing, look for considerable moderate rime, maybe mixed icing there in the orange shaded area there, South Central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, Gulf of Alaska up to the Alaska Range there, with just a elevated thread out there over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and just isolated moderate up there along the Yukon River to the southern slopes of the Brooks Range, eastward into the northern panhandle. Jet stream, strong southwest flow, 140, 160 knots across the Gulf of Alaska, and then trough along the west coast and eastern Bering Sea, so northwesterlies, 90 to 100 knots on the back side of that. And at 9,000 feet, 70 knots southerlies, Copper River Basin across the eastern Alaska Range, 3,000 feet, 45 knot winds into Prince William Sound, otherwise 20 to 30 knots over the interior, strongest out over the Bering Sea, 40 to 45 from the northwest. Turbulence, widespread moderate chop, 6 to 8,000 feet and below. Good portion of interior Alaska, the Alaska Peninsula, all of the Aleutians, as well as St. Lawrence Island area. And pretty smooth though for the Panhandle, Arctic Coast, North Slope areas. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's dynamite, coronal mass ejection. It's when the sun, it kicks off energy and these explosions that are larger than the Earth, explosion type things, coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the Earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the northern lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the northern lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside of you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job, that was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter, my goal from that moment and to this day still is to get one hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall, where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you get to preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you're lifted up. Your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was, or how fortunate. Of course, I just spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything, so you got to remember that luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. Well, that feeling could last for days.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the coastal water forecasts for the inside waters, pretty light and variable depending on your area there. Lincoln Glacier Bay, northern inner channels, light northwest winds, 10 knots. Stevens Passage, southeast 15, southeast 10 for Clarence Strait. On the south coast, they're north of 20, 8-foot seas, and then west-southwest for the central coast at 15 knots, north coast 15 knots out of the south. And then the outlook for the day on Tuesday, Lincoln Glacier Bay, northern inner channel, southeast winds 15 knots. Otherwise, small craft advisories for the remainder of the inside waters. In the case of Stevens Passage, you'll be south at 25 knots, and northwest 25 knots for Clarence Strait. Out along the coast, small craft advisories, winds all west, all at 25 knots, seas just under 20 feet. Prince William Sound for the day Monday, southeast 25 knots, 6-foot seas. And Cook Inlet, north of the Forelands, not too bad, south at 20. Small craft advisory, southern Cook Inlet, southeast 30 knots, southeast 40 knot winds, good for gale warnings for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands. And 35 knot gales out of the southeast for the western North Gulf Coast. In and around Middleton Island, eastern North Gulf Coast there, south at 30 knots. And the outlook for Tuesday, again, south of the Forelands there for Cook Inlet, small craft advisories, west winds 30 knots. Northern Cook Inlet, much lighter, west at 10. Prince William Sound, small craft advisories, northwest 25 knots, probably some higher gusts. And gale warnings for the North Gulf Coast, west winds 35 to 45 knots. Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, gale warnings, west winds 45 knots, 12 to 16-foot seas. Kodiak Island, south winds 40 knots tomorrow. Sitkinak Castle Cape, same thing. South winds 40 knots, seas just under 20 feet. Alaska Peninsula, northwest winds 30 to 35 knots. West at 30 for Bristol Bay. And then on Tuesday, Bristol Bay, southwest winds 30 knots, 11-foot seas. Gale warnings for the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, southwest 35 knots, 17-foot seas. And then we've got from Cape Sarachev to Sitkinak, west winds 30 to 35 knots, and then 30 to 40 knot westerly winds blowing across Kodiak Island, seas 8 to 16 feet. Fox Islands, northwest winds 30 knots, seas 15 to 18 feet. Adak and Atka, west-northwest 30 to 35 knots with 15 to 17-foot seas. Amchitka to Shimia, west winds 30 knots, seas 16 feet. And for Tuesday, gale warning, Shimei to Amchitka Island, southwest winds 35 knots. Adak and Atka, as well as the Unmak Island area, all southwest 30 knots. Gale warnings, though, for Unalaska Island, southwest at 35 knots, 14 to 17 foot seas. St. Matthew Island, northern Bering Sea. St. Paul, St. George, west winds tomorrow 30 knots. And the southwest coast, west winds 25 knots with 8 foot seas. And St. Lawrence Island, northwest winds 25 knots. And for Norton Sound, brisk wind advisory, southwest at 30. And for Tuesday, winds still come down up there around Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, down to 15 to 20 knots out of the west. Small craft advisories with the southwest coast, southwest winds 30 knots. Gale warnings for the northern Bering Sea, southwest at 40. St. Paul and St. George, gale warnings also, southwest winds 35 knots. For the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, south to southeast winds 15 to 20 knots, and then 20 knot winds for the central coast down the west side there to Point Lay. Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, small brisk wind advisories, northwest 25. Gale warnings from Cape Thompson to Wales, northwest 35 knots. And then brisk wind advisories for the central Arctic coast, western Arctic coast, all the way down to Wales for west-southwest winds 25 to 30 knots. Much lighter, though, for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, west winds at 15 knots. And for tonight, weakening storm pulls in toward the Chukchi Sea there. So look for winter storm warnings continue for just about all the western interior into the Susitna Valley, and winter weather advisories elsewhere. Winter storm warning for Prince William Sound for a lot of snow tonight, and a winter storm watch out for the southeast, or for the Yakutat area. The winter weather advisories in the Panhandle, central and northern areas for 3 to 6 inches of snow. That continues into tomorrow as well. Greatly improves or continues to improve in the west and the eastern Bering Sea with much lighter winds and a lot less snow, maybe even some clearing there, Bristol Bay. Next storm tracks northward, strong winds and heavy rain and snow, and warmer temperatures push into southern Alaska, possible gusts of 70 miles an hour. And then that low tracks into Prince William Sound and brings snow across much of the eastern interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.